And then he then proceeded to say, oh, it's quite hard to eat carvery with chopsticks.
If that happened again, exact same scenario, happened again to you, how would you react this time?
Both he laughed and then because he was expecting, he saw that as humour. Yeah.
Who's completely westernized himself.
Yes.
Is that someone said, how are you going to eat carvery with chopsticks? Genuinely look at him and think, you don't eat carvery with chopsticks, you idiot. Kev, good to see you, mate.
Hello, Terry. How are you? You okay?
Oh, Christmas is over. Goes quick, doesn't it?
No, yeah. Already 2025. Happy New Year and all that.
Happy New Year. Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year, everyone.
What have you been up to, Kev?
Well, this week, I'd actually like to tell a little story about what happened to me about a week ago, actually. So we're going back to 2024 for this story.
Right.
And it's going back to Boxing Day.
So the first of the two instances of what I will call generational ignorance without malicious intent happened on Boxing Day as we were having a coffee in Cafe Nero. A elderly gentleman, probably around 70 to 80 years old, struck up a conversation with us. Initially, just as we walked in, he said, "Are you my neighbours?" And we were like, "No, I don't think so. I can't recognise you living close to us." And he said, "Oh, well, whereabouts are you guys from?" And I knew what he meant, but I answered the local area at which we lived and not the country of our ancestral origin. And he proceeded to ask again, no, where are you guys from? And I then said, local area. He said, where are you guys from? Local area. Where are you guys from? Local area. This went on for about 7 or 8 times, to which Hayden found this hilarious. And then I caved and I said, on the 8th time he asked, where are you guys from? I then said Hong Kong. And he said, oh, Hong Kong, very nice. So, that was that. It seemed a bit of a strange encounter. So that was a generational ignorance without malicious intent, incident number 1. Incident 2 happened a couple of days later as we went for a Toby's Carvery. It's Monday the 30th and we'd just been for a Toby's Carvery. We were just about to leave when a elderly gentleman across the way had started to talk to us. We'd exchanged a few friendly smiles during our meal anyway, so I knew that he was, a friendly chap. Anyway, he then says to us as he's about to leave, "Do you guys own a restaurant locally?" We said no, and then he says, "Oh, I thought you might do because most of you have a Monday or a Tuesday off." We were like, no, we don't own a takeaway or a restaurant. And then he then proceeded to say, oh, it's quite hard to eat carvery with chopsticks, upon which I just then laughed it off, and I think he was just cracking a joke of his generation, and we all laughed and then went on our merry way. But it just seemed quite a peculiar thing to say.
So both of those things happened within 4 days.
Oh, that is shocking, Kev.
I don't know. Right. I mean, I told people at work and the first story kind of tickled them a little bit because they were like, oh, well, it's probably just an old guy. And like, he did ask the question like 7 or 8 times, where are you from? And I said, local area. I said the name of the local area, actually. I didn't say the words local area. And then he kept asking and he asked like 7 or 8 times. And I knew what he was getting at, but he didn't infer exactly that. So, and he pretended not to hear me. And he was like, where? Where from? Where from? And I then repeated it loads of times. And then I knew what he meant. And on the 8th time, I just said, look, Hong Kong. And he went, Hong Kong, that's a really nice place, that. And then that was it. And the encounter finished. But Hayden found that funny. Now, the second one, because there was a bit of a jibe, an underhand jibe about eating, chopsticks and all that. But he said it with a smile on his face. Now, both guys were like in their 70s and 80s, okay? So they're well into the boomer generation. And I've grown up, as you have, when someone's being malicious. When they've got a certain demeanour or look about them or the way that they behave. It's been said with intent to sort of, hurt or kind of cause some kind of a bad reaction. Neither of these felt like that. It just felt like old geezers just being able to say the stuff that they used to say because it was allowed back then. And I didn't take offense to either, but I was really interested in your take on this. So I kind of want to see exactly.
Yeah, that's a funny one then, because I don't think there's any malicious intent. I think it comes in. I mean, I was going to ask how old they were actually, but being in their 70s, well in the boomer stages, It really is. Back in those days, it was widely accepted as a way to talk to people of our
Yeah,
culture.
absolutely.
And yeah, funny one that, because I don't think there was any malicious intent. I think if they did, they wouldn't even bother talking to you.
Yes.
You know, so but oh man, when I watched that, I had my hand. It was like the cringe worthiness of them asking you that question. But it's such a fine line, isn't it? Because they were so friendly.
Yeah, it is a bit. It was a bit weird. It did feel a little bit weird. Now, to them, it was a conversation opener. It was a little bit of a way to have a little bit of common ground. Is not the word because it wasn't common ground, but it was. I could tell they were smiling. We were all smiling at each other. So they were, unless they were doing it because they could play the, oh, I don't know what's going on, and I'm just a little bit of a funny old guy. So, and then I can do some underhand racism to you. It didn't feel like that to me. It almost felt like they were looking for a way to open a conversation, and the only way
Yeah.
that they could open a conversation was to have some really outdated jokes around, sort of. And far be it from me, because we're part of the millennials, right? Like, we're the end of the millennials, right? So, and they're the boomers. So, kind of, I didn't want to be a snowflake. I didn't want to be a Generation Z snowflake and
Yeah,
be like, oh
totally.
no, I've taken loads of
Yeah.
offense to this. Equally, I didn't want the boys to think it was completely okay for someone else to speak to them like that. Hayden did ask me what the second guy said, and I just completely did a little white lie because I've been in some magazines for work, and I said, "Oh, are you the guy from this particular
Oh, okay.
magazine?" And then I was like, "Yeah, I am." And then he was like, "Oh, Daddy, you're famous." Little did he know that he asked something very random about eating, carvery with
Yeah,
chopsticks, right?
I don't know about the chopsticks thing. I think, but in the same tone, I don't think it felt like he meant anything. I think he felt that, some people are just very bad at humor.
Yeah.
It felt like it sounded like that was the only thing he could have joked about to break ice.
Yeah, I agree. Like, there's a lot of jokes that aren't PC anymore.
Completely unnecessary, but
Yes.
also it's probably the only thing that he could break the ice with you on.
Absolutely.
The chop.
And that was it, and then I said, we kind of just both, he laughed, and then because he was expecting, he saw that as humor. I knew that he saw that as humor. Now, I could have stone faced him and said, what the F do you mean? What you're talking about, this and that. But it just didn't feel like that sort of situation. It felt like more like a, yeah, great one. And then that was it, and then like, I think Carmen was quite quick to put an end to it, and she was like, "Oh, have a good night, see you later." So she very quickly shut down the conversation. But
So did he stop you in your tracks then?
so he was leaving, and we were just about to leave at the same time as well. So we were kind of paying the bill as well. So our tables were really close to each other. So he got up to leave. We'd exchanged a few friendly smiles across the way anyway during our meal. When you look up and you catch each other's eye, and then he smiled and I smiled back, and then that was it. Sort of. I think he probably thought, well, there's probably going to be some kind of interaction here, and the only type of interaction I know how to speak to these folk are by cracking some kind of weird, slightly considered racist now, but not back then.
I actually think, come to think of it now, in that circumstance, was he with his wife?
Yes.
Yeah, I actually think that was the only common ground that he could probably find with you.
I think so too. There was not, he felt the pressure to say something. I was expecting him possibly to say something that, he could have easily passed and went, "Hope you guys have a good evening." But I think he wanted more than that. I think he wanted there was an expectancy for him to say, "Oh, do you guys own a takeaway or restaurant?" And I was like, no, I'm not in that trade. And I could have gone through the whole, my mum and dad were in that trade, but we'd moved out of that trade. And all right, there's no need. Yeah, exactly. So it did feel, and then he was, both of those things happened within 4 days leaving. He did then say the whole chopsticks carvery thing, and I think that was his attempt at going, well, after a normal bit of conversation, it's quite customary to leave with a wisecrack of some sort. So I'll try my hand at a wisecrack, and that's what he came up with,
He might have left thinking that was a shit thing to say.
Yeah, who knows? Right?
I don't know about your boys, but I actually think that probably would have only been picked up by us, our generation, having grown up
correct,
going through what we went through. I actually think that if someone said that to Jamie, who's completely westernized himself, is that if someone said, how are you going to eat carvery with chopsticks? Jamie would genuinely look at him and think, "You don't eat carvery with chopsticks, you idiot." I genuinely think that they expect that they wouldn't even look any further than that.
Yeah, same. And and like that, because that question wouldn't be asked of his generation to him, because they're quite used to using chopsticks for ramen and sushi and things like that. So
Exactly.
they themselves know that that's not the cutlery to use for.
Yeah, so I think it would be more innocent. I had a similar incident in a chippy, like an English chippy, fish and chips, and I was at the back of the queue, and this elderly gentleman with a flat cap was right at the front of the queue, about 5 people behind him. And when you ask for curry sauce in a fish and chip shop, genuinely they ask, "Do you want English curry or Chinese curry?" And they do here anyway. I'm not sure what it's like in Newcastle.
Yeah,
and Chinese curry being the spicier version. English curry is the one with, I don't know, raisins.
Sweeter, isn't it?
It's sweeter.
Yeah.
This chap at the end of the queue, at the front of the queue, had asked for curry. The lady behind the counter said, "Do you want English curry or Chinese curry?" And I didn't know this guy from Larry. He turned around to me, clocked me, and went, very proudly said to the woman, "Chinese curry." Looked at me, winked, and went like that. And I went. And I looked at him, and I'm thinking, and I went, good, like as if to say, "Good one." Yeah. And I'm thinking, and again, similar to the chopsticks incident there, I was thinking, should I have taken offense to that? Was that a bit of camaraderie, or what? What was that? I don't even know what that was. Like, why did he wink and salute at me as if to say, was that to say, "I'm with you, brother"?
Same here. That's exactly how I felt. It was like, was that banter? Was that camaraderie, or was that meant as offense? Both instances happened so quickly. It was quite hard for me to catch the train in terms of like their train of thought. But neither of them felt like it was anything, like where they were maliciously out to, cause offense or want a bad reaction from you. Do you know what I mean?
Here's a question: if that happened again, exact same scenario, happened again to you, how would you react this time around? Now having processed.
Same. And neither of them,
So you did. So you did the right thing. You reacted in the right thing. You reacted in the right way.
Yeah. Exactly.
That's good, man. That's good. Yeah. And I don't think this is inherited. This will be inherited by our kids.
No, I hope not. I don't want them to. If someone did say something like that, I hope they'd be big enough to then go, it's just an old guy being old, isn't it?
And then he then proceeded to say, "Oh, it's quite hard to eat carvery with chopsticks."
Correct.
Going through what we went through. Yeah. I actually think that if someone said that to Jamie, who's completely westernized himself, is that if someone said, how are you going to eat carvery with chopsticks? Jamie would genuinely look at him and think, "You don't eat carvery with chopsticks, you idiot." If that happened again, exact same scenario, happened again to you, how would you react this?
Both he laughed, and then because he was expecting, he saw that as humor
this time round.